The Miami Hurricanes are still playing football. Hurricanes go to Texas, beat the Texas A&M Aggies 10-3, and now the stage is set. New Year's Eve Cotton Bowl. Hurricanes and Buckeyes. I'm Manny Navarro for The Athletic. He is Carlos Ledo of the MIA All-Day podcast. Brother, they got the job done.
It was a shootout down at the OK Corral. It wasn't a shootout, but it was a slugfest, baby, and the Canes came out on top. So all of Texas and all the haters can suck it.
We're going to talk about the matchup between the Hurricanes and the Buckeyes a little bit. We'll dive in a little bit there, although I think we'll probably have another show before kickoff to discuss that matchup. But Carlos, some things to discuss here early on. Miami's just ability to play terrific defense and to really have defense carry the day in that victory. We're going to break the game down, what happened against the Aggies. We'll answer your mailbag questions, but I want to start with the emotion of this all more than anything else, Carlos. For me, I've been around this program now, closing in on 30 years since I first started covering practices with Butch Davis out there. And to see the program start off with the national championship in 2001, right, which ended up being the last one, and then to see them go what they've gone through the last 20 plus years of just never really being able to get their footing again, right? To winning this playoff game. It was great for me to be in College Station to just soak that moment in. I want to know for you were here back home. What was it like for you watching on television?
I was a lunatic. I was just, living and dying with every play. To me, I think this game, the way it played out, was sort of a fitting end to this sort of, lack of big wins and lack of big time performances on national stages for the Hurricanes, because it showed grit, it showed toughness. It didn't just show physical toughness, but mental toughness. To be able to overcome two missed field goals, to be able to overcome an offense not being able to do much all day. Texas A&M really, other than that last play, shutting down Malachi Tony, you didn't have a whole lot in terms of production for the day. Fumbled before that. Being able to bounce back from those moments and show the physical toughness and the mental toughness and the confidence in one another to get the job done, to me, is something that's indicative now of, have we finally gotten over that loser mentality, that mentality of, oh shit, the ship is sinking now, we made a mistake and things start to go wrong. That mentality that will lead the Hurricanes to lose a big game and then lose three in a row right after that during the regular season. The mentality of, having a strong regular season back in 2017 and then just letting it fall apart after the loss to Pitt, not seeming prepared against Clemson or Wisconsin. Being here in a situation where they've been playing playoff football the last 4 weeks of the regular season. In essence, they had to play for their playoff life week after week after week after week. And I think having that mindset coming into this game really prepared them for the type of battle they were going to face. And they didn't flinch. And I think that's a credit to not just the players, but the coaching staff. Everybody was locked in. And it was great to see. I think that was clearly the best performance of the year, even though it wasn't an exciting offensive performance. But I think as a team, what it means to be a team and to do what you need to do, which the name of the game now when you're in a playoff situation is survive and advance, that was one hell of a win. For somebody that's watched the program basically my entire life, who grew up a mile and a half down the road from the Orange Bowl, going to games as I could walk, seeing Bernie Kosar early on, and then going into that long run of success, and then being in the midst of this drought of mediocrity and coming up short, having a win of consequence for the first time in over 20 years to me is just, emotionally fulfilling. Santa came early, Manny.
Well, he certainly did, and he actually came. He was dressed as Michael Irvin and gave Mario Cristobal a huge kiss there on national television, and it was probably one of the. I don't know. It's one thing I think a lot of people are going to remember, right? Is that interview of a happy Mario on the field and Michael Irvin, the unofficial team mascot, running over and giving him a big kiss on the cheek and just sort of saying thank you, right? Because this felt like a moment where the program said that we're back, right? We've always said is the U back. We know that means winning national championships, but it's different. It's been a journey for so long, Carlos, just to feel relevant, just to feel like, hey, we're not a pretender, right? And they went out there and they absolutely withstood probably one of the toughest environments I've ever been around. I mean, 104,000 people yelling and screaming, waving flags. The stadium is shaking quite literally. You're feeling it in the press box. And your offense is having a terrible day because, the other defense isn't bad either. You got all this wind. Um, your coordinator keeps making everybody say, "What are you doing, brother?" We'll get to that in a second, Carlos. But I want to stick to the big picture and the emotion of this all because so many people. I mean, I feel like that's what I can provide. I was there in person. I spoke to Joe Echeverria, the school president. I spoke to Irvin afterward. Obviously, Mario and a lot of the other players and coordinators. Dude, this was a lot of work just to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people really appreciate what that journey has been. It took a lot of people at the University of Miami to realize that they took football for granted for many years. And they just thought, you know what? We don't need to spend money on a big coach. We don't need to have the nicest facilities. We're Miami. We won 5 championships, 5 national championships. We are just one day it's gonna happen, right? We're gonna get the right coach and it's gonna happen. And it's like college football changed, Carlos, for so many years, right? You saw the SEC start to dominate. You saw other programs like Ohio State, after they beat Miami, really start to rise again. And the Hurricanes just weren't invested in ways that they needed to be financially, and the leadership needed to change. And so I remember, having a meeting with somebody in Miami's administration 5 years ago when they said, "Hey, we're going to go after Mario because we feel," and this was after the whole Kirk Herbstreit criticizing Miami on national television and saying there's no alignment between the school president and the football and the people that really care. And he was right. And Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, who my coworker for many years, wrote about this. I talked about this on local radio many times. Something needed to change. And to see Joe Echeverria, and I've got video up on YouTube that hopefully will be posted by the time this airs, of the scene, right? And I put some of it on Twitter of Echeverria with his arms crossed, just watching it all go down. It was cathartic, right? It was just like, dude, we did it. Like we got Miami to the point that it needed to get to. And now everything else is gravy, essentially, is what Joe said, for this season, for year 4. He kept saying, we're on schedule, we're on schedule, we're on schedule. 5 wins, 7 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins and a playoff win. It validated a lot of things, Carlos. And I don't know that people back home necessarily thought that or were able to see that. I hope they read my article for The Athletic because I tried to convey that in that story of just this was a long time of pushing the rock up the hill.
Yeah, and I think it's ironic, really, that the reason the Miami Hurricanes became so dominant in the '80s was because they were ahead of the curve in college football, because
Mm-hmm.
of their disruption of college football with using a pro style offense, using a pro style defense, using athletes at different positions, turning safeties into linebackers, using speed on the defensive and offensive end in ways that wasn't used before in college football when it was a lot of wishbone, power I formations, a lot of big slugging defensive players. They switched it up and they gained success as a result of being ahead of the curve, and then they fell behind it at some point in college football. I also think it's great that I think in your article you mentioned this. Joe Echeverria said, when you make an investment as a business person, you expect a return on that investment, right? And they didn't see before the the benefit of investing in football. The previous administrations, the previous administrators, presidents, even athletic directors, they didn't see the ROI that could come from something like this. And now in this era, it's very clear because of the amount of money that the college football player is paying out, the bowl system now being incorporated into it, the TV rights, all the money that's involved, and the national stage that you get your university to be a part of. It makes a difference, not just from a football perspective, but from an enrollment perspective, from a prestige perspective. The University of Miami has always been a really good academic institution, but when football has suffered, I think the institution suffered itself as well. I think now the brand is starting to regain some of that luster, and now on this national stage, when it was the only game on at that time, the nation got to see a team that's tough as nails and embodies the personality of its coaching staff, of its head coach, and really of the teams of the past. Because that's the other thing about the U being back. It's not just the talk of the U being back and winning games, it's how they win games and how they do it When Miami was the best, they were the most physical team and most disciplined and toughest team. Well, not necessarily disciplined, but you know what I'm talking about. The most tough team on the field, both
Right.
mentally and physically. And I think this is a step in that direction, showing that kind of physical and mental fortitude and strength against Texas A&M really leads you to believe now, okay, now this is a step forward. This isn't just one another little check in the box that's kind of a fake win, sort of like a starting off 10-0 in 2017 and then dipping back down immediately after. We've seen consistent progression because they've had to do it the hard way. It wasn't just like FSU taking a bunch of transfers and then making a 1-year run. This has been progressive, not just from the transfer portal, but also from the recruiting foundation, from the culture perspective, from the university investment. For the first time ever, I think, over this 4-year span, all of the entities of the University of Miami that needed to align to be able to get football to where it needed to get to were finally working hand in hand and understood that there was a partnership there that needed to be honored and respected, because without one, the other one wouldn't succeed. And I think they've finally done that.
Yeah. Well said, Carlos. And I, for me personally, I got to leave my journalist cap on, and I can't sit there and celebrate the moments with the fans. But you know how I feel about this program, how I feel about this city, and all the teams. It's a privilege for me that I get to do this job. It's a dream come true for me to be able to be around so many of our sports teams. That's all I wanted to be when I was a kid, was an athlete and to play for the home team. Well, this is the second best thing, right? If you can't play for them, it's be up close and be there for all the special moments. And for me, I got emotional watching Mario and his son celebrate and everybody else. And I can sit here and compare it to all the other moments that I've been around that were special. I got to be on the field, in the Marlins 2003 playoff run. I was on the field when Pudge and JT Snow had that huge collision at home plate. I was in Dallas when the Heat won their first championship, handing out Miami Herald newspapers. When Shaq and Wade had pulled it off, and one suit, that whole Pat Riley
Yep.
line, "We're here for one game." As a Miami-born kid, it felt really good for me to just see that and to see so many Miami fans in attendance. I mean, when I got on the plane to go to Houston, um, as soon as the door closed, somebody started playing Phil Collins in the air tonight, and the whoosh whoosh started going around the plane. And you could just feel the emotions of the people around, and I think back to the mid 2010s when Mario was working at Alabama, and I happened to be at a game with him at American Heritage High School. And Mario and I would see each other for many years when he was on the recruiting trail, because he'd be down here in South Florida trying to pull guys. And I just remember a conversation we had for 20 minutes on the sideline at Heritage. I think it was a state playoff game, and he just looked at me. He said, "Man, what the f is going on down here? Like, what's wrong with them? Why can't they win?" And I told him, I said, "Dude, they need you. They need somebody who cares. They need somebody who's going to put the kind of energy and passion uh, that's needed, that's required." And Mario's response to me was, "Well, they're never going to hire me now, because I left." I left Al Golden in the lurch and went to Nick Saban, and he had his Alabama polo on, and it just, and then he ends up at Oregon, and it just felt like, man, maybe this is never going to happen for Miami. And when he got the job, Carlos, and I got a chance to talk to him right after he got hired, the day of the press conference, he looked at me and he said, "Man, there's so much work to do." And I said, "Well, fuck, bro, you're here. Like, do it.
Yeah.
Like, get to it now. This is what we've
Yeah.
been talking about for years. This is your opportunity. You got your chance. Get to it." And just felt good, Carlos, to see it, and to have that moment where so many people that he helped bring together were able to have that moment together on Saturday. And I know it's not over. I know it's just the beginning, but I wanted fans to
Yeah.
see, to have an idea of what this journey has been like, even for me, just being a South Florida guy watching this program
And think
evolve.
about it this way, Manny. How many years have you covered this program? How many years have we been fans at our age, us old guys?
Hmm.
How many times can you literally watch history being made by this program, right?
Hmm.
This was the first college football playoff win ever in this program's history. We saw this program on Saturday make history for the first time ever, right? And that's something that you don't get to experience very often. And for me, somebody that witnessed so much history, growing up and seeing this program at the best and at its worst, really. And sometimes
Hmm.
it's gratifying to see that, but I also feel really good for the younger fans, all these little young Thundercats that have been growing up, Hurricanes fans that have nothing to show for it, that have been
Right.
sitting there. Like, it was easy for us growing up because when we were coming up, we had the benefit and the luxury of watching a team that was consistently in the national championship picture. Right? We
Hmm.
didn't remember a time when we were growing up from elementary school through middle school and even into high school of this team being in the mix for a national championship. But these poor kids that have been born in the 2000s, after that national championship, they haven't witnessed any of that stuff. So now
Hmm.
this is their big moment, and I hope it also comes with additional success down the road to eventually getting back to the national championship. And I think it's important to note also that in this environment, it's even more difficult to build that kind of sustained success, that dynastic sort of success that they had in the 80s. That may never come back again. But to be in the mix every year, that's all I'm looking for, man. Give us a shot. Give us a chance to be able to go in there and battle and try and earn it on the field. And you know what? And the other thing I think I feel really good about for the program and for Mario Cristobal and the administration, everybody, is there's been a lot of shit talking going into Miami going into this playoff game about whether or not they deserve to be in, right? There was a lot of fans from a particular team sitting on their couch saying that they would have beat either team by 30 points, and they happened to lose to both of these teams in the regular season,
Right.
right? And other teams like Texas and BYU or other teams saying that maybe they should have been in Vanderbilt and their 4'2" Oompa Loompa of a quarterback, dissing everybody in clubs in New York, talking about they should have been in. Listen, and also people saying that this was a terrible game. All that talk to me is talk. For us, ultimately, as fans, if this game would have ended 2-0 with a safety, we would have been happy as long as we won. But to me, to say that this is an ugly game when everybody was praising the Ohio State Indiana game as a classic and that ended 13-10, how could you not say this was a classic game? This was a battle of wills. And if you're a football
Yep.
fan and you love football, you heard a lot of pads popping, a lot of helmets clacking, and seeing a lot of physical play out there that ended up in just two teams trying to figure out who wanted it more. And hey, I'm so glad that that's the kind of game this team won and came out on top with.
Yeah. And just a tremendous atmosphere. Again, I can't say enough about the fans for both teams. Again, check out the video I posted. It's on the YouTube page here. And on Twitter, I put some clips up as well. You can just see the Miami fans soaking up the moment. Um,
Well, I
Carlos,
was
just
smoking
talk.
it up afterwards, baby, with cigars and bourbon.
Carlos, we're going to get to the Miami Ohio State game in a minute. I wanted to kind of show the updated playoff bracket, and you can see this is the percentages. This is from the Athletic, my employer. Um, Miami's got a 27% chance, according to the analytics, to beat Ohio State. They're the biggest underdog of all the quarterfinal games. I think, let me look at the line. I don't know if it's 10 and a half or 11 now, that they're an underdog facing Ohio State on New Year's Eve, 7:30 p.m. kickoff in Dallas. But the other matchups, Indiana is going to face Alabama, who that was an exciting game,
Yeah.
comeback win over Oklahoma. Oregon took care of business against James Madison like everybody thought they would, scored a whole bunch of points. They will be taking on Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl at noon. The Rose Bowl kickoff, I think, is at 4 o'clock on New Year's Day, Indiana and Alabama. And then the other game is, of course, the Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Ole Miss, SEC rematch there. Will be the night game on January 1st. I will be at the Orange Bowl. I will not be going back on the road with the Canes for the game in Dallas. I have my duties here for the Athletic, being the South Florida based writer, to cover the Orange Bowl. I will get to cover the Orange Bowl and the national championship game, so I will be around for both. But I think my feeling leaving the stadium on Saturday, and I don't know if you felt the same way too. Obviously, a lot needs to be done from an offensive perspective for Miami to have a chance to beat Ohio State. But I also felt they played so well defensively, that this is a team that can beat Ohio State because of what they do on the front end, and because they've got Keontae Scott back. They've got some other guys really just playing at a super high level. So defensively, I'm not necessarily scared as a Miami guy of the Buckeyes and Jeremiah Smith, as talented as they are. They only scored 10 points against Indiana, but I think Miami's offense clearly has to step up.
And I think, the game plan coming in here against Ohio State has to be very similar to what they did against Texas A&M. I think they need to pressure with the front four. I was looking at the numbers that Julian's saying. He's a hell of a lot better Marcel Reed. Let's just start off
Hmm.
with that. This guy's a legit quarterback. He was in a Heisman finalist for nothing. His efficiency ratings and his passing percentages, based on not just the overall season, but man, what throwing the deep ball against blitzes, against pressure, this kid is very good. So, and he, of course, is weakest now from what I've seen, which is not really that weak against pressure, but only pressure when it's not blitz pressure. So he
Right.
eats the blitz alive. So again, Miami has to do the same thing they did against Texas A&M: rush 4, 5 max, pressure with their big time defensive ends and tackles. Save the blitzes here and there when necessary, and play well on the back end, and disguise and hide coverage and mix coverages like they did against Texas A&M. Another very encouraging thing is Corey Heatherman, with 2 weeks to prep, put together one hell of a game plan going into that
Hmm.
game.
He
And
sure
I
did.
have total confidence that with 10 days and plenty of tape on Ohio State, especially what Indiana did to them to sort of stifle them offensively, he can come up with a game plan to be able to be in the mix and do the same thing. But like you said, offensively, you know, as you can imagine, as I was watching the game and I was texting you about it, I was ready to throw some shit at the television screen about midway through the second quarter because I was like, "What the hell are we doing here?" It they kept mentioning, and I'm glad the telecast even said it. They kept mentioning that, Shannon Dawson busting out all the trick plays today. Not really working, but at least he's busting them out. But listen, that's the point of what I've been saying for a long time. You can't just grab back shit and expect it to work, right? You
Hmm.
have if you're using a trick player, you're using a certain look, there has to be a thought process behind it, and maybe something you counter with when that gets stopped, that you come back with it can be successful later on. So for me, one of the examples was they ran a jet sweep early in the game to Malachi Tony, and they ran a fake reverse on the back end, right?
Yep.
Uh, on that play, the entire Texas A&M defense didn't respect the reverse because they saw Malachi Tony with the football and they said, we're just going to chase 10 down because that's their guy. So if I'm the offensive coordinator and I see that happen, I come back to that play and I actually hand the reverse off, and let's see if we can make a big play off of it. Another thing is when they went with the old school Steve Spurrier, you know, sort of swinging gate formation to one side, rather than throwing the quick spot, ideally as a coordinator, this is what you're thinking, right?
Right.
Plus, they were on a hash. You like to do that from the middle of the field, but that's fine. You did it from the left hash. You lined it up to the right side. You overloaded the right side. If the numbers are there, you throw the quick screen and let him pick up 5, 10 yards off the quick screen, or maybe he breaks one and gets more yardage. The other thing you do is if you've got a backside one-on-one because they've overloaded the right side, maybe you work that one-on-one. But to bring the guy back across motion that everybody's keying on, and then hand it to him to try and go around on the short side of the field, to me was freaking ridiculous. I'm just being honest here. There's shit that he does that makes absolutely no sense to me. And then we went into the game last week. We said it before the game when we were breaking shit down. I said they have to throw on base downs. If they're going to throw the football, they have to play. They have to throw on base downs. First down, maybe second down. If it's second and medium, second and short, because when there's an obvious passing situation, A&M's going to get after your ass. You cannot be in third and long. And I said it. The team that's in third and long the most is probably going to lose this game because of the pass rush of both teams. Well, I think we put in A&M in more third and longs, but at the end of the day, Shannon Dawson didn't realize that you could throw the ball on first down until the second half, until the fourth quarter, and that started working. The other thing is, last week I broke it down. I said I think they could run really well against Texas A&M. They might be able to run for 200,
Hmm.
and it was sort of ignored. And I think not getting the ball, I know Mark Fletcher had a big game, but you can't count on him to run the ball 25 times. You need to be able to mix it up, not just from, a rest perspective, because that's important too. You want him to have fresh legs. He had fresh legs in the fourth because they weren't really giving it to him enough early on in the game. But you also want to mix styles. That's why you mix in a Pringle. That's why you can also use Marty Brown a little bit. But to
Yeah.
try and mix in Pringle to get some more speed on the outside. And finally, I said the tight ends and the backs were going to be important off play action. He completely ignored them. He handed the ball off to Elijah Lofton, didn't try and throw it to him. He got a quick play action to Bauman in the first half. I think it was in the first quarter. He picked up 5, 6 yards, but they never went back to that. You have to be a little bit more methodical as a play caller, especially when you get into games like this. Because if you are understanding that their entire game plan is focused on 10 and they're shutting that down, then what do you need to do? You should already have shit in your mind to use 10 as a decoy and play off that and use the numbers to your advantage then on the other side of the field. And or if you're figuring, listen, our secondary is really good, our guys can't get open on the outside, let's start working with the tight ends and backs and have them creep up, use play action, do some of the stuff they did in the second and the fourth quarter, like the quick throws on first down. That's just moving the ball down the field, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then you take your chance if you can with the explosives. It was very difficult to throw ball deep that game because the wind was really gusting. But you take what you can get, right? You take advantage of whatever the defense and the environment provides you. And I don't think they did enough of that.
No, and listen, I had a funny. I mean, you were texting me, my phone was blowing up, and I was sitting next to three of my former athletic colleagues. One of them still with me, Sam Kahn, who's in Texas and has covered Texas A&M for a while. But the other two guys were Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, and Ari just had me in stitches the whole game because if you followed him on Twitter, he just like he's like he's like I've got an exclusive copy of the Shannon Dawson offensive game plan for today, and everything's blacked out, and it says lateral to Tony. And that's basically what it felt like for most of the game. And a lot of people who watched the game, including the broadcasters at times, were like, well, we don't know why he's not continuing to give the ball to Mark Fletcher, but such and such is happening. And so everybody in the building felt it. And what's funny is if you look at the post game interview with Shannon Dawson, I wasn't with him at the time when he did it because I was out talking to Michael Irvin and Joe Echeverria. But
Good call.
you can go back and he'll say, he kind of made a joke about, oh, did you see that long run? The A gap was Mark Fletcher, and it's kind of like I do think Miami's offensive coordinator at times makes calls because he's tired of hearing it from the fan base and the media that he ran too much A gap. And so maybe he would just try to do way too much. I don't even know if he's got any trick plays left at this point for Ohio State, but you live and you learn. And luckily for Miami, survive in advance.
Yeah, and listen, if he's going to listen to a game, the one time he missed a podcast over the last 5 weeks, because he clearly changed his offense after he listened to us, was last week. If he had listened to the podcast, maybe he would have been a little bit more prepared.
I will say this, Carson Beck, the wind was really bad, Carlos. And I told you that, I think, pregame when I walked on the field. I mean, it was whipping 20 plus miles an hour. You look at the replays, the kick, especially on the kicks, the ball just is moving 4 or 5 feet to the right, especially the missed field goals there for Miami. And
Which let's stop there for a second. Let's stop. This is another thing that really pissed me off, right? And I texted this to you. The wind is whipping hard.
Yeah.
Why not, if you are planning to kick a field goal, try and run something to center the ball instead of kicking it from a hash and forcing your kicker to try and golf it, and make the right sort of fade or swing of the ball to get it in, making it an easier kick. The other thing is, why did we eat a timeout at the end of the first half when you could have clearly called that timeout and set yourself up a little bit better, done something to help you get that kick?
Yeah. Listen, Mara's clock management there at the end of the first half was not good. All right. Bottom line, just not. Granted, they I think only had one timeout left because they called it timeouts earlier in the game for other reasons. I don't know if it was just third down looks. They wanted to see what Texas A&M was coming out in or what. But the bottom line is this shouldn't have been a 10-3 game. Miami should have probably won this game by 2 or 3 scores. And I think that's at least an encouraging sign going forward that they should have had more points, brother. And it was obvious to a lot of people there.
Oh, certainly obvious to me.
Beck finished 14 of 20 for only 103 yards. Did get credit for the touchdown because it was a shovel forward. Fletcher with 172 yards. And I got to say this about Mark Fletcher, and it's a story that I know a lot of people know by now, but losing his father, right? And Carlos, you had your own experience with that as a younger person. To what he went through of, do I even want to play football anymore? His dad coached him in Pop Warner. It's one of those emotional stories. His mom driving cross country because she's afraid of getting on planes, drove all the way to Berkeley last year to be there in person to support him. You just think about everything that guy has been through. For him to come through in that moment when Miami needed him, it was special, and it's one of those stories that lasts forever, right? It's here's this kid who was going to go to Ohio State and go play with Jeremiah Smith and all the boys from the South Florida Express. I mean, I was at a dinner with Mark and his dad 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and with the South Florida Express guys and everybody there. And his dad was the life of the party, just talking with everybody, just a guy who was very full of life. To lose him and to continue to be who he is and to be the leader and then to lift Malachi Tony up after his fumble, right?
Yeah.
Immediately go to him on the sideline. I mean, I tweeted this during his state championship game, Mark's state championship game with Heritage, the last one that they played. He reminds me of Alonzo Highsmith. Alonzo Highsmith, huge personality, same type of guy, just an absolute leader. I think Miami fans have to realize how special Mark Fletcher is.
Yeah, and that's another thing that when we're going back and talking about the Hurricanes of old, they had that kind of leadership, and I think it's finally starting to come in terms of the culture and the people that they're recruiting and bringing on this team, that they have that sort of mindset of leadership and selflessness and picking each other up and not pointing fingers. You know, it's a credit to Mark Fletcher, not just for his performance on the field, but using a tragic moment like that to fuel him, to make him better, to make him stronger mentally and as a person, to sort of evolve into who he is today and continue growing as a human being and as a man. Because ultimately, you could take two paths with tragedy. You could let that sink you, and you could just devolve into depression and into, just self-destructive behavior. And maybe there was a little bit of that because I certainly experienced that in my life a little bit. But once you sort of get through the fog and realize this isn't what my father would have wanted, and what would my dad have wanted me to do, and I think a testament to Mark Fletcher, he's definitely taken that on and decided to use that tragedy as fuel to not only play well for his team but to honor his father's memory by the type of young man that he is, and the sort of strength that he showed on the field and leadership.
Really, really special individual, and he's coming back next year. I mean, I don't think he was going pro after this year, no matter what, because I don't think as a pro prospect he's ready yet. He hasn't done enough, and so he told ESPN that he'll be coming back next year to lead. And Miami needs that. You know, they've got a lot of leaders. They've got Malachi Tony, they got Bryce Fitzgerald certainly on the back end, but they're losing guys, right? And it's not going to be easy. We don't know what this roster is going to look like. We don't know who they're going to bring in via the portal. But when you got your own homegrown products, it makes a difference in the locker room.
Yeah.
And great for Miami that he will be back for 2026.
And let
Let's
me say
talk
something
about.
about Carson Beck. Let me say something
Yeah,
about Carson Beck.
go ahead.
The stat line wasn't great because there wasn't a lot of opportunity. But at the
Hmm.
same time, he played like a leader because he didn't force the football.
Right.
I don't remember him forcing a throw in that game, trying to do too much because he hadn't gotten the ball rolling through the air. So credit to him for being aware enough that they were in a battle that one possession can flip this entire game and not forcing the ball. So good on Carson Beck.
Yeah, kudos for him. And you know what? I know the receivers must have been pretty bored, right? But Keelan
They took it
Marion,
out on Texas A&M's defense by blocking, which is another
it
thing,
did.
which shows
Yes,
leadership, right? Which shows the
yes.
kind of people they have on that team. They're like, all right, how do I impact this game if I'm not getting the ball? And
Hmm.
that's what coaches want to see. They want to see you be able to impact a game without having to touch it every time. And how do you do that? By blocking, by making sure you're aligned properly, by running your routes, whether or not you're getting the football, because you don't know when the ball's going to come to you. You've got to stay ready. And then you've got to do the other little things that allow your team to win. And they certainly did that.
All right, we talked a lot about the offense. I want to give the defense their flowers, Carlos. Number one, Keontae Scott. I mean, this guy, you talk about portal additions. If he doesn't get hurt, he probably wins the Thorpe Award. He
Yeah.
missed 3 games, statistically killed him. I didn't know if he was going to play or not. I was 50-50. I thought maybe he still needs another week. Maybe they just sprinkle him in for 15 to 20 snaps. And, they allow, some of their younger players like Fitzgerald to get a break, right? Just to breathe because Fitzgerald's played a lot. You've had injuries at other positions. Keontae Scott balled out the whole game. I mean, he was out there. He didn't play. He didn't start the game, but he came off the bench and balled out, led them in tackles, 3 tackles for loss, um, forced fumble, which no, Miami wasn't able to capitalize, but still, it just felt like he is such a valuable piece, and they absolutely needed him.
I've been saying all year he's the second best defensive player on that team. He is the most impactful defensive back they've had down here in a long, long time. He is an old school Hurricane. He is that Ed Reed type that, it doesn't matter if he's hurt. He's hurt, dog. It doesn't matter. He's going out there and he's
Mhm.
playing. So, for him to suit up and go out there and play, let alone go out there and play as well as he did, to me was a testament to that kid's toughness.
Yeah, turf toe is not an easy injury to come from,
I
and
had turf toe my senior year in high school. The last 2 games I played. That
mhm,
shit hurts. That is
yeah.
not easy to play through. And because every time you take a step, the pain is pretty unbearable.
Well, your buddy OJ McDuffie, right? I mean, that
Yeah,
was his
end of his career.
ended his career turf toe. I mean, people don't realize what that is, but it hurts, and it's
And that's
and
how OJ and I bounded, and we ended up pounding way too many vodka tonics one day, and almost cost me my wedding. That's a story for another time.
that is Jacoby Thomas. I thought was solid all game as well. Motori had the huge pass breakup. I know some people thought, is it targeting? He got there right when Miami needed him to, right before the game sealing interception. Basainth was solid. I think there was just one moment where he kind of slipped trying to chase Marcel Reed when somebody got out of their gap assignment. Mesidor was great, and of course, I mean, what can you say about Ruben Bain? He literally jumped up and palmed the ball on a field goal attempt. I mean,
Yep.
it was like out of a freaking video game. I was like Tecmo Bowl or something, and just knocked that down. And then the 3 sacks to be able to shut Texas A&M up after they had talked so much crap about him. And to to sort of have that moment post game again, you can see that in the video that I posted earlier. You can see some of Ruben's comments, but it felt good for him to kind of have a big game because to this point, 4.5 sacks, had 3 in the biggest win in Miami in more than 2 decades.
He deserved that spotlight because of all the work he's put in this season. All he's done for this team. Him and Mesidor leading the nation in pressures, doing what they do, and not being able to see the fruit of that reward all the time, of that work. I think it was great for both of them. For Mesidor to get a sack and a half, for him to get those 3 sacks, or get that 1 sack for sack and a half for Mesidor. To do that for Ruben Bain, I think to be on a national stage and prove to everyone what kind of football player he is, the guy that we know he is down here,
Mm-hmm.
it was outstanding. And I'm glad he got. And he's a humble kid. He could have gone out there and done a victory dance and spiked the football in everybody's face and talked shit to the left tackle and said, "Who's your daddy now?" But he did it with his play instead of his words. And to be humble still afterwards shows what kind of kid he is.
Yeah, truly is. And, Calvin Harris, who I talk to all the time, told me earlier this year that, the one thing he and Mesidor have been doing all season is swimming. They do additional sort of swimming work to get their bodies in the physical shape needed to have the endurance to be able to keep chasing the quarterback in the fourth quarter. Because you can lift weights, you can run, sprint. That dude is turned into a swimmer. That's his off season or mid season workouts that he still does to
And
keep himself.
they play the majority of the snaps. They rarely come out.
They do, and again, we talk about all the Hurricanes greats. What did we hear from John Vilma and all the guys who were part of the last championship team? They would put in all sorts of extra work, all kinds of extra things that were beyond the weight room and beyond what the coaches asked of them because they believed that they needed an extra gear, and that's what made them special. And that's what Ruben Bain does. And I think there's been some people saying, well, maybe he's not a top 5 pick. He's more of a tweener, an inside out guy. I think this footage pretty much guarantees he'll be a first round pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he and Mesidor have taken to heart the Fat Joe saying of yesterday's price is not today's price. They understand that with every level of success comes additional sacrifice that's required for you to be able to get to that next level and get to that success. And I think they've taken that to heart, and I think they will continue to elevate their game. And it showed on Saturday. They put in the work all year long. And it's the other thing that fans need to realize. It's these guys have been starting this process since January, right? You've put in all this work. Most of the work you put in is not under the lights. It's not in live action. Most of that work goes on when nobody's watching you, when there's nobody there to clap for you, when there's nobody there to cheer for you, when it's just you and your brothers, right? Putting in the work, putting in the sweat, throwing up mid workout, having to get back in there and continue it. And then doing all that with no reward gets to be a grind. But the ones that embrace that, the ones that fulfill that the journey, that process is the most important part because it really is. You don't get to Saturday until you do all that work beforehand. And you don't become great unless you do more than what's expected of you. They've taken that to heart. And Saturday was sort of the culmination of that. And hopefully it continues.
All right. We're going to talk about, we're going to answer your mailbag questions in a bit. We're going to talk a little bit about Miami, Ohio State. And I'm hoping that I can get Cameron Teague Robinson, who covers Ohio State for The Athletic, on one of my podcasts here soon before kickoff, obviously, Carlos. And hopefully you can be a part of that too. We do know it's the holiday season and people are busy and doing a million different things. I got a lot of things I'm working on for The Athletic aside from whatever I'm doing with the Canes. So we all have things to do here, but let's get a quick look at this Miami Ohio State matchup on paper. This is courtesy of True Media. You look at the matchups here. Miami's offense with Ohio State's defense. Carlos, this is without question one of the best units in the country, if not the best. Some people have said
Yep.
Ohio State's defense is the best in the country. I thought Indiana put on a clinic themselves against a really good Ohio State offense. So I'm of the belief that Ohio State and Indiana have two legitimate defenses that deserve consideration. But I thought Miami's defense played like top three against Texas A&M, who came in averaging 36 points a game. It's not easy to hold them to three. But when you look at this matchup initially here, Carlos, what concerns you for Miami? What do you think could be an early key to a Miami victory from an offensive perspective?
They've got to protect Carson Beck. They have to be able to keep him clean, to give him some assistance in terms of being able to go off play action and do the things he needs to do, throw on early downs, get away from throwing against the blitz. They have to run the football. And I think that's something that Indiana did well. It wasn't a bunch of yards, but they did it effectively enough to drive their offense and go off play action and put a little pressure off Mendoza to be able to do things from a cleaner pocket. That to me is the key. If they can run the ball well against Ohio State, which is a big if, then they can everything else plays off that. And I think ultimately when you get into playoff football, that's what everybody has to do. They have to go to their strengths. There is no more sort of, okay, let's see what we can do here or there. At this point, you've got to figure out what your identity is, hunker down to that, and then try and take advantage of, yes, the mismatches, the opportunities, but you've got to believe in who you are and what you do. And what the Hurricanes clearly did on Saturday is that they dominated both lines of scrimmage, and they need to try and do that again coming into the Ohio State game. Run the football, give Beck the opportunity to play from a cleaner pocket. Don't make mistakes. The one thing that really shocked me about Ohio State is they didn't force a lot of turnovers during the regular season. They only forced 14 compared to Miami's 23. Miami's plus 11 for the season. Ohio State is plus 5. If Miami can somehow turn Ohio State over once or twice and play a clean game on their side, take possessions away from Ohio State, give themselves shorter fields, that's going to be huge in this game. And of course, they played a cleaner game in terms of penalties this week again. Miami also, they need to do the same thing. And now it's all about the details. When you're playing the best teams in the country, when you're going into these matchups, the team that makes the most mistakes is going to put themselves behind the 8 ball. And again, same thing as at Texas A&M. Don't put yourself in third and long. Put yourself in third and makeable. Try and throw the ball on early downs. Do the things to be as efficient as possible and give yourself a chance. And then when it's the fourth quarter, win that slugfest like the old school Hurricanes used to do. There's a reason why the third quarter ends and that sideline puts up the fours, because this program's tradition is when the fourth quarter comes and the game is on the line and the moments are the biggest, this is when we thrive. And they need to do that. Give themselves a chance going into that fourth quarter, and anything can happen.
Ohio State, just some names to throw out at you. And again, I'm hoping I can get Cameron on because he's a really good reporter, Carlos. I've known him since he was over at the Louisville Courier, and we used to talk Canes and Cardinals, and now he does a great job for us covering the Buckeyes. And so I'm really hoping you get a chance to jump in on that interview with me at some point. But Caden Curry, 16 and a half tackles for loss is one of the top guys there for the Buckeyes. Kenyatta Jackson, homegrown South Florida product, 11 tackles for loss. Arvell Reese, who people are saying is a top 5 pick potentially in this draft, 10 tackles for loss, several sacks. I got to look at what the sack numbers are. Caden Curry has 11, Kenyatta Jackson has 6.5, and Arvell Reese have 6.5. And then you look at the next layer for the Buckeyes. Sonny Styles, part of that championship team that won last year. Caleb Downs, probably the best safety in college football.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on and on about this group, but you know, no drop off whatsoever after losing a bunch of dudes who won the national championship and ended up being NFL first round picks. It looks, if anything, they've gotten
Like
better.
they're better.
Yeah. All right, let's flip it over to offense here, if I can. One second, as you bear with me. Ohio State matchup. Here is Ohio State's offense against Miami's defense based on the rankings. One thing that caught my eye, Carlos, about Ohio State, and you're going to have to refresh my memory because I don't study the X's and O's quite as much as you do, but a whole lot of two tight end sets for Ohio State. They play a lot of two tight end. I'm not sure how many teams in college football can honestly do it at a high level, but they do it at a high level, and they do it successfully. Which, their running game not necessarily dominant, but Bo Jackson, their freshman running back, is solid. I put him
Thousand
on
yards.
freshman All American team. But really, I mean, it all comes down to what do you do to stop Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, who, in my mind, are top 5 picks. Again, South Florida Express guys that I got to know really, really well. Uh, just phenomenal talent on that side of the ball. When you look at this matchup initially, what jumps out at you?
I think they have to slow the rundown. I think if they could stop Bo Jackson from going off, he's got 1,000 yards for a reason. He's averaging 6.2 yards a carry. Slowing that down and making them one-dimensional as possible, you're probably not going to stop Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate from getting some yardage. But at least if you could limit one of them, if you could limit Tate, you've also got to be very aware of their tight end. Their tight end, Max Clare, has 448 yards receiving. He's a legitimate weapon for them in that offense that helps them keep moving the chains. That's something you could focus in on. So if Jeremiah Smith, if he can get his yardage, but keep him out of the end zone. If you could limit Tate a bit and limit the tight end and slow down Bo Jackson, you give yourself a chance. The thing is, Julian Saint's a really good quarterback. He's very efficient. To give you some numbers, this guy on the season has only had 6 turnover-worthy plays all year. You know what turnover-worthy plays are, everybody? That's a pass that should have been intercepted, could have been intercepted, that was batted down, or something of that nature, right? He's thrown 6 picks, and those are the only turnover-worthy plays he's had all year. That's 1.4% of all his throws were turnover-worthy plays. Okay, that's incredible. He's only been under pressure on 25% of his dropbacks, which is another incredible statistic. He's 61% against pressure, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 8.9 yards per attempt. He's been blitzed about 37% of the time, but his completion percentage against the blitz is 78.6% with 17 touchdowns and 2 picks and 8.5 yards per attempt. Now, with a clean pocket, he's slightly worse than he is on blitzes. So he's 75.1% completion percentage when it comes to, actually, that's his the amount of times he's been in a clean pocket. 75% of the time he's had a clean pocket to throw. 83% he's actually better in a clean pocket, and 24 touchdowns with a 9.4 yards per attempt. So the conveying, the theory here is you got to get pressure on him. He's great under pressure regardless compared to everybody else in the country. He's the number 1 rated quarterback in terms of PFF numbers. This is the kind of game where you have to, as a defense, do what you do best, which is get after the quarterback with the front four, and then hope you mix in coverage enough that you confuse him to make a mistake in the game, which I think Indiana did well. Because if you try to play man, if you try to bring pressure, he's going to find the right guy. He knows where to go with the matchup, and they've got playmakers who can go up and get it even when they're covered.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be an easy assignment by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're the favorites to win the national championship for a reason, but just like Texas A&M, they lost their last game, and I think there is something to be said about momentum and feeling really good about yourselves going into the playoffs. Last year, every team that had a bye, Carlos, lost in the quarterfinals,
They're going to have 3
and
weeks off before this game happens. That's a long time to be off.
that's a long time to be off. Miami has some momentum, obviously, coming off of this victory. They know that the wind affected their own offense. It's a struggle for that reason. I just think Miami has a chance to pull this off, and people can say what they want, that they're the biggest underdog and there's no way Ohio State's going to lose. Brother, when you've got players playing with the kind of passion Miami does, you have a chance against anybody. I don't care who they line up against, and that's what I saw in person with my own eyes in the building. Is there's a lot of dudes that are hungry that want to win, and I think as long as they show up with that same attitude, and I don't have any reason to doubt that. I'm giving them a fighting chance to beat Ohio State.
Yeah, and there's something to be said, like I said before, to having to be playing with a playoff mentality for the last 4 weeks of the regular season and being in a battle like that on Saturday and coming out on top. That boosts your confidence tremendously and makes you feel like you could play anybody and beat anybody on any given Saturday, which they can.
Let's get to the Twitter questions, Carlos, because we actually, I mean, I got a lot of responses, a lot of mailbag content to dive into, and I wanted us to have a chance to do that here. Let's see if we change the view here a little bit. There we go. There we go. Got the sexy close up here, and people get to see your Dolphins hat. More importantly,
Yes, I have 3 coming from Fanatics, so we'll have enough for a run to the national championship uh, in
three more
place.
wins, right?
3 more wins.
All right. This is Marcus Miranda. I appreciate the question because Hurricane Mark on Twitter, his question to me initially was, would love to hear you talk about how much or how huge of a victory this is and how people don't realize how much this means to everyone and to the city of Miami. I think we pretty much attacked that one in the first 15 minutes of the show. Marcos, thank you for reminding me what's important here.
And I
This
think
one's
what this does also, let's go back to that point for a second. I think what this
yeah.
does is for those kids that play Pop Warner that are growing up now, that
Mm-hmm.
are playing those 7-on-7s for South Florida Express and other teams that would be more inclined to leave and go somewhere else because they feel those programs are on better footing or better respect. This win, the way they won it and the way they played, I think is now starting to show them that, hey, staying home can be good for us because look at the guys that decided to stay home. Look at the impact they're having, especially the young guys.
Yeah, absolutely true, Carlos. Good point. This is from Montreal. Kane, do you have confirmation from the horse's mouth that Mark Fletcher will be back in 2026 with the Canes? I personally don't. I wasn't around when Mark said that he's definitely coming back, but there's no reason to doubt it. I think he will. Like I said, I don't think he has the NFL draft prospects. We saw what happened last year, right? Who was it that was Miami's running back? I already forgot who he was. The kid they got from Oregon State.
Oh, Dame. God.
We're both stumped. I yes, this is
That
what
guy.
happens when you age quickly, Carlos.
I will look it up
Damian
for us.
Martinez.
Damian Martinez.
Yes,
There we
he
go.
was here for 1 year, ran for 1,000 yards, and did not. I think he went in the 7th round. And I don't. It's just unfortunate, man. Like running back is a tough position to get drafted at. Mark's going to make more money staying here, being a leader, right? I mean, it
Yep.
just makes sense. All right, this is from Taco Thunder 5. Stop, Cop City. Will we finally achieve world peace when Miami rights a 24-year-old wrong and beats Ohio State next week? And how many extra babies will be born in South Florida 9 months from now as a result?
All right. Yeah. And all of them, if they're boys, they all need to be named Sebastian.
uh,
Here's the thing I'm going to say about that. I don't want this to be about revenge. I know everybody's going to shit on me for that because everybody's excited about getting revenge for the national championship game. Everybody forgets that we beat them in 2011, more
mhm,
recently at home with Al Golden. And Luke Fickell was the head coach. That was supposedly revenge for losing that national championship game. That game happened so long ago. Most of these kids weren't even alive when that happened. The
yeah,
kids on the roster, right? Um, I think focusing on that 2002 season, that 2003 national championship in the Fiesta Bowl, sort of does a disservice to this team because it's not about that. This is their own individual chase. This is their own
yeah,
individual journey. And more so than getting revenge, it's about them stamping their flag, planting their flag in college football, and saying that we are a team to be reckoned with, not this season, just this season, but moving forward. We are a program that's on the rise, and we're back to being who we are. So to me, it's more about reestablishing this program as an elite level program than it is about getting revenge for 2002. Because you know what? At the end of the day, Terry Porter's flag ain't going back in his back pocket if we win this game, right?
it's true.
They aren't gonna, now after the fact hand us the national championship and said you guys were right all along. That was a shitty pass interference call. They're not gonna do all that. So all we could do is focus on what's in front of us. The bottom line is beat Ohio State and keep moving to the national championship. Keep advancing, keep raising the profile of this program. That's what it's about.
100%. And I hope for Miami, that people, regardless of what happens, in a few weeks or not a few weeks, 10 days, whenever it is that they line up and play Ohio State 9 days, that even if that game doesn't end pretty for Miami with a victory, right? That people don't forget that this is a huge step forward. This is progress in ways that none of us saw coming for a long time, right? We always thought, man, when are they going to get there? When are they going to cross the threshold? They crossed the threshold. This was a monumental moment for Miami football. It happened. It's real,
Yep,
and enjoy it, and this is a successful season, regardless of what anybody says, in
absolutely.
my mind.
Yep.
This is from Ariel Marin on Twitter. Does Ryan Day calling plays benefit us? He did it. That is news today, by the way, that
Yeah,
Ryan
but
Day will be calling the plays.
I said that a couple weeks ago. It's his offense. He was the offense coordinator before. I don't think it's going to be a problem for
Hmm.
Ohio State in that sense. I think there's so many weapons on that offense that I think it makes life a lot easier to call plays when you got guys like that. I think he's a very smart coach. He knows what he's doing. I don't think it's going to be necessarily an advantage. I think at the end of the day, the advantages need to be played out on the field.
I think I don't know, as a head coach, like I don't like head coaches that are constantly involved in the play calling. I think it's a disadvantage because you end up missing something else that might be going on. Right, Manny Diaz, the year he had to call the defense for Miami, where he took over calling the defense as the head coach. Miami had a terrible year as a defense. It's interesting to me. I'm going to ask Cameron T. Robinson what hit for his. He's closer to that program, right? He knows how Ohio State is run the last several years. I really want to get his opinion on what a difference that makes. Hopefully, when we get him on the next podcast, he'll have a good response. I'm sure he will. Um, this is from Ralphie Rodriguez. What changes does Shannon have to install versus Ohio State, given the struggles this week? Was this whole season a psyop to make people look stupid with their mid-October hate of duo and inside zone schemes?
Um, I do not believe it was a psyop. I've been saying it for 3 years. What you see is what you get, and I think you saw Saturday that this isn't the most thoughtful offensive game plan at times. Isn't the most well thought out or structured offensive game plan. It could be a lot of grab bag stuff, but ultimately, when you say, "All right, screw it, we're just going to go with what we do well," and do that, you have success. I think for them to be able to have success against Ohio State, like I said, you got to use the quick game. I think you have to go play action. Also, they need to do more of that. The other thing that I find interesting is that he refuses to throw screens to backs, which to
Yeah.
me is very interesting. I don't understand why he doesn't do that. And I think rather than this is another thing that really pissed me off. That I was like, what are we doing? Rather than handing the ball to Malachi Tony in the backfield and having him run in the B gap and possibly get wrecked,
There
right?
was one run like that he did run
Yeah,
it up the middle.
that's what I'm saying. Why? Why do
You're
that
right.
to Malachi Tony? Right? That's
Right.
not what he does best. The idea is to get the ball to your playmaker in the ways that suit his ability. And doing that isn't necessarily Malachi Tony's best traits, right? He's not the biggest guy. He's very quick. He's fast. That's not the type of run you want him doing. Not in the teeth of the defense, right? Not
Right.
the best thought out thing. If you're going to put him in the backfield, either get him to run something outside or use him to match up on a linebacker or a safety or a nickel or somebody get a better advantage in the passing game out of that as opposed to running him into the line of scrimmage. Also, handing the ball to Elijah Lofton, you're taking a carry away from Mark Fletcher and Pringle. Why? What's the point of that? Get him the ball, throwing the ball. Throw him the ball. That's what he does well, right? Catching the ball out in the open field. That's what he is. He's supposed to be a mismatch as a tight end on the opposing linebackers and the safeties, right? So why not do that? So let's stop with the creative craziness. I know you're trying to overcorrect for being way too vanilla before and not being very creative, but now we've gone to the aspect of you're trying to be Salvador Dali and paint some crazy shit and have people believe that you're Jackson Pollock that's slapping all these colors and little dots onto a canvas are supposed to be worth millions of dollars. This is bullshit. Okay? How about we just do what works, do things intelligently, common sense shit, and we will move the football. All right? That's all I'm saying.
People asked me, Carlos. I ran into people in the airport who asked me about you, and they said, when can we get Carlos at a football game? I said the reason Carlos doesn't go to the football game is because if he saw Shannon Dawson in the post game, I don't know what he'd do to him, but
I'd be in
it wouldn't be
handcuffs.
nice.
I'd be in handcuffs, and I can't do that. I have a family to support. I have a law license to protect. I cannot be doing those things. No, and the other reason why, honestly, why I stay at home is because I get a better view of the game and I can see what's going on the field. and I'm not distracted by everybody else at the stadium, which all those people around me annoy me because I sit at home and I'm locked in.
Hmm.
Also, it doesn't cost me $15 a beer.
That's true. All right. This is from Heel 919. Is Mohamed Torres play the biggest play in 23 years? If you had to sort of rank the biggest plays of the game here from Texas A&M, where would Torres pass breakup rank?
It would be top three. I think that maybe yeah, top three, top four. I think the biggest plays to me were obviously the Malachi Tony touchdown, the interception by Bryce Fitzgerald to seal the game, the long run by Mark Fitzgerald, him getting going in that second half,
Mark
and
Fletcher.
Torres, Mark Fletcher, sorry, Mark Fitzgerald. I don't know why the hell I keep going Mark Fitzgerald every once in a while. But Torres' play was huge, and to give up his body like that for his team again shows the mentality of this program, and to not want to come out even
Right.
though he was clearly concussed. My
He,
man
could,
put
he couldn't stand straight up at all.
my man, was clearly concussed and wanted to stay in the game. That was very rocky of him, and I appreciate that.
I could not stop laughing after the game was over because Wesley Bassane, Mohamed Torre had to go back, I guess, to do a concussion test. I don't know where he was. He wasn't around the
They needed
team.
to test for that. They needed to test for that. Like
and
clearly,
and
bro.
and Wesley Bassane runs up to him and says, "Bro, I thought you were dead." I mean, I this just the comedy of that moment is something I'll never forget. All right, some more commentary here from our fans who I asked to provide some thoughts and questions. This is from Rob Cabal. Mario is doing this all with the number 15 team composite ranking. Is he overachieving?
Oh, this guy. Oh, yeah. He doesn't have enough talent on the team. No, of course he's doing so much. Oh, yeah, bro. You're right. Go ahead. Yeah, we're just gonna give it. Yeah, it's fine. We'll move on to another question that actually we want to answer.
All right, Kane Showboy. Who has the better offensive line, Texas A&M or Ohio State?
Ohio State.
Well, I'm going to say this about Ohio State because I was doing my team breakdown, and I'll share more of this when we get up my buddy Cameron, the Ohio State beat writer, on the show. But I got through the offensive line snaps. Left tackle Austin Severald Jr., 19 career starts. Luke Montgomery, left guard, 15 career starts. The center Tegra Shabola, 29 career starts. The right guard Carson Hinsman, 34 career starts, and the right tackle, Philip Daniels, the transfer from Minnesota, has 16 career starts. More starts by far, 148 here for the Ohio State career starts than Texas A&M, which I'm going to look that up for you as well, since I have all these nerd stats for you. Let's see how many.
To me,
I
it
said
breaks down to something very simply. Their quarterback has only been under pressure 24% of the time.
true.
That's one hell of a number.
196 career snaps for Texas A&M. But and there is a way. I got to look this up too. Team pressure rate is another thing I should probably look up. I wish I had all this stuff ready for you to share to answer this question. Let me see if I can get to it here,
When you
Carlos.
have a quarterback that's only been under pressure 24 times, you have a 1,000-yard back that's averaging over 6 yards a carry. You have another back that's averaging over 5 yards, close to 6 yards a carry. That to me is indicative of a good offensive line.
Pressure rate. All right, this is team pressure rate for quarterbacks. Miami leads the country, 16.1% of dropbacks does Carson Beck feel pressure. The next closest team is Ole Miss at 21.4. So Miami's 5% better than everybody else. Ohio State is 10th, 25%. And let me look here at where Texas A&M is. Texas A&M is 54th, 29.9% of dropbacks. They felt pressure. I think those numbers went down against Miami.
Yeah,
So
and let's also note that as good as Julian Saint is, he's athletic, but he's not as athletic as Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed is better at escaping the pocket and making plays with his legs, so that helps the pressure rate. He avoids pressure through that. So to me, I think Ohio State's offensive line is a level above, a step above Texas A&M.
here, from a defensive line perspective, Carlos, very important number, our defensive front. Miami is creating pressure on 40.1% of dropbacks. Ohio State right behind them, 39.7. So Miami is seventh nationally. Ohio State is eighth, two of the best pressure units in the country. So,
And I think Ohio State's defense is more complete than A&M's.
yes, for sure. There will be no wind, also, by the way,
Thanks
inside
to
the
Jerry's
Cotton
World.
Bowl.
And
All
hey,
right,
let's not forget the last time the Hurricanes played in the Cotton Bowl. Not the same venue,
right.
but I like throwing this in there. The ass whooping of Texas back in the '91 Cotton Bowl. Always a favorite memory.
Last time Miami was in Jerry World, Carlos, you know who they faced?
Was that LSU?
Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Um,
That was the first game of the season that wasn't a playoff game or a bowl game. Don't bring that up.
no. Wilson Salvatierra. That's also the first game I covered for the Athletic, by the way, was
So
that
it's your
LSU
fault.
game.
You're the jinx.
Yeah. Wilson Salvatierra says, honestly, do we have a chance against Ohio State? Their defense is much better than A&M. Yes, Miami has a chance against
Yes.
Ohio State. Mark Ardwa.
Many people thought Rocky couldn't beat Apollo in the second matchup, right? Many people thought Rocky couldn't beat Clubber Lang after he lost to Clubber Lang. And they certainly didn't think they could go into Rocky could go into Russia and beat Drago, but he did it. So guess what? We're doing it, baby. There's no easy way out, right? Hearts on fire. Let's do it. Eye of the tiger.
Mark Ardwa 521 on Twitter. Miami wins a 13-10 battle on the road. It was not 13-10. It was 10-3 on the road at a top SE school. And all I hear is how we can't score enough to beat Ohio State, Georgia. But Ohio State loses a 13-10 battle on a neutral field and no similar criticism. Fair. I mean, again, you're one of the final 8 teams. Everybody's great at this point. There's no bad teams left in the playoff.
Yeah, G5s are gone.
Dan Alden on Twitter says, is Carter Davis a guy who can recover from this game? Carlos, I don't know the psychology of Carter Davis, but I do know he was really bad at Florida Atlantic before he came to Miami. I think he was 8 of 10 on field goals before this past week. I think Carter Davis is not good against the wind. I think he's much better inside a dome. Agree or disagree?
I think he will have a much better time in the dome, and I think psychologically the fact that he made one, right? He ended up making one, and knowing the way that wind was whipping, I think will be okay. He'll be okay. I think next time he needs to take the cafecito before the game and not turn it down. And also, the only way you could have made a field goal of any distance in that game was if you had Greg Norman back there with a 9-iron trying to shape the ball. There's no way that anybody was making a 50-plus yarder in that wind.
He missed from 40 and 47 and then hit the left upright on another kick, which I don't remember how short that was. But
no, it was on. It was the distance was there. But I mean, clearly the wind was killing it.
Ball got pushed. This is from Hurricane Q16V Lover on Twitter. Carlos, I was cursing Beck all game long with some throws. I didn't understand. Was it the wind? Because we couldn't tell. Merry Christmas.
Yes.
It was definitely the wind.
Yeah, that deep ball that you saw, yes, the wind definitely affected that. When you're trying to throw the ball in 20 miles an hour and that thing just hangs in the air, there's no way the wind's not going to touch that. It's going to disrupt the flight of the ball.
For sure.
If any of you have fished and you've tried casting into 15-mile-an-hour wind or 20-mile-an-hour wind, that you know what I'm talking about.
We may need to do like a off-season fishing thing for you so that the fans, your fans, there's many of them now, Carlos,
all 5
that always ask me about you, that they can come fish with you or something. And then we'll just try to throw. We'll hopefully we'll pick a windy day and we'll test your theory out. We'll see how hard it is so that they get the understanding of what it's like trying to throw a football into that.
As long as they pay, I'm good.
This is Winston Wolf Thomas on Twitter. Gentlemen, with no amount of therapy may ever help us forget the trauma from those years of suffering to a Mark D'Onofrio defense. Saturday's performance has at least begun the healing process. Fill in the blank. That was the best defensive performance by the Canes since?
Ooh, it's been a while. There's not one that pops to the top of my head right now.
This is their first win over a top 5 team on the road since they beat Virginia Tech, I think, in 2005. Carlos.
And this was a better defensive performance.
Top 10 team. Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe one of the early aughts after the national championship Florida State games where they held Florida State to like 10 points or something like that. That might have been another good one. When Florida State had an explosive offense, I think this is right up there as one of the better ones of the last 20 some odd years.
It might be the best. It might be the best.
Yeah.
This is from JK Slay. I ran into JK in the airport. Carlos introduced
Ah,
himself. Super cool guy. Long time listener. JK, thanks for treating me with so much kindness. I definitely was facing some haterade from people on Twitter who are like, "Oh, Manny's only happy now that they won, and such a fake." He revoke his credentials. Um, this is a question from JK. He says, "Can Carlos get the word to Dawson that we were asking for balance, not trick play city? The Tony plays are to keep the defense honest, not replace the AB gap power runs completely." He says, "We need balance."
I mean, how can you? K-Slay has now flipped over to the dark side because it was an early detractor of my thought process, and I'm so happy that K-Slay is on the winning side now. Now you've come over to the dark side. Now you're one of the Sith lords. I mint you a Sith lord. Okay.
Yep. Armando Izagiri, who wrote his own story. Carlos, I tried to get people on, and I don't know if I retweeted it or I just commented on it, but he sent me a link, and I thought he did a great job from a fan's perspective, sort of expressing what he felt seeing the team win. He sends this question in: how important have the foundation and pillars of the program been from Mario's two full classes, 2023 and 24? Maui Noah, Bain, Sampson, Fletch, Brown, 27-9 record, and then the 24 class, Scott, Lightfoot, Blunt, OJ Trader, Lofton, Bell, 20-4 record, plus the cherries on top with the current freshman. The point here is recruiting has
Yep.
panned out. And I tried to tell you guys every single year, as long as I've been doing this, I've been doing this a long time, that you're not going to get a 100% hit rate. There's always going to be busts in every single class. But if you hit at 60% or higher, then it's good. And I think you go back now, you look at 23, you look at 24, you look at 25, much higher hit rate as the years go by. And
Yeah.
that's what matters. That's how you
And I,
turn this thing around.
and I think he's defined the kind of player he wants in terms
Mm-hmm.
of character and culture and all that kind of stuff, aside from talent and also fit for the system. I think he's defined what he wants up front. He's defined the kind of skill guys that he wants. And he's done a good job of finding the plugs to fill the holes in the portal, and has done a great job of hitting on the portal and bringing guys in. You had guys like Keontae Scott, huge portal addition. Jacoby Thomas, Akeem Mesidor. Marty Brown has been a big part of this team throughout the year as a backup running back. There's guys on the portal that they've picked up that have been a solid contributor. For as much heat as we give him Breckenmeyer, he's been solid at center. He's been okay. He hasn't been great, but he's been good enough, better than last year's center. So he did a great job this Saturday. And you hope you continue to see that. I think what Mario has done is truly identify the players that he wants on this team, and he's got enough of them now that they've sort of established that ongoing pipeline of talent that they want on this team.
Brett Peterson, thank you for the question. I don't know that we're necessarily going to answer it because we've talked about this quite a bit on the show and just had an entire segment. But he wanted to know, how does Miami beat Ohio State? I think winning the turnover battles is paramount, the same way they did this week.
I agree. That's one of the main ways you do it. I think you got to be efficient on offense. Even if you don't light up the scoreboard, be efficient. Keep moving the ball. Possess the ball. Take possessions away from that Ohio State offense. Limit their opportunities.
Ariel Marin says, thoughts on officiating on Saturday? I thought we got some breaks, but at least officials were consistent in letting the players play.
Yeah, I think it was a good, well officiated game. I don't think there was anything glaring to me that stood out.
Four
People will talk.
penalties for each team, by the way. That was it.
Yeah, I don't. Some people might want to talk about a late hit on the sideline. Maybe, but the
Targeting.
targeting, but that wasn't even targeting. He didn't thrust himself at the defenseless player with his helmet to make contact. It was sort of part of the momentum of them colliding with each other. So
Right.
that's definitely not a targeting call. And they've, I've read articles that they've come out and the officials have said that yes, other officials have said that's the correct no call. That's not targeting. So I think it was a well officiated game. I think they let those teams play and they went to battle.
Steven Thunder, 56 Blaxican. Also, is it true that Mario used to fight in underground cage matches back in the day and Raul was involved?
I think Raul stayed away from cage matches. Raul is more shifty than strong and more of a lover than a fighter. And I think his love of mangoes may be what has gotten him in trouble and off the air for so long. But we'll see. Maybe he makes an appearance before that game against Ohio State. I think it's a possibility.
Maybe we'll get a phone call or something from him at some
I've
point.
heard rumors. I've heard rumors of where Raul is, and I'm tracking him down.
All right. I will say this about Mario and the underground cage matches. Hopefully, I get Kelvin Harris to talk about some of the epic physical confrontations that Mario and his brother Lou used to get into in front of the whole team. It was Mario is he was going to get into being a security guy, right, for the
Secret
president.
Service.
That Secret Service, and if not, potentially FBI. He's not afraid of a fight. And if you
He
notice,
likes
every
MMA. He
interview,
was an MMA dude.
he was that guy. He's always been that guy. All right, Ronnie Graham. Miami versus Ohio State feels like Florida versus the rest of America. Ohio State has 7 Florida players, most impact guys. Jeremiah Smith is the one. He's clearly locked in with his teammates, but is that home state matchup an emotional factor? Who has more pressure, Miami or Jeremiah Smith?
Miami.
Listen, Jeremiah Smith has a national championship already, and people think he's the number 1 player in the 2027 NFL draft. I don't know that he has any pressure to deliver. Obviously, he wants to deliver, and obviously, he's going to be highly motivated. But for Miami, there's a lot more to gain by winning this game.
I agree. There's. I don't think there's any pressure, added pressure onto Jeremiah Smith. I think the pressure's on Miami to stop him, to slow him down, and to prove that he should have been down here to begin with. Although he's got a national title, so he's got nothing to complain about. So I think the pressure's on Miami, not Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah. This is a thought here from Junior Zofessional on Twitter. I know why Ohio State is favored, but most pundits believe Ohio State will win comfortably because the 10-3 win over Texas A&M, and forget about a season's worth of data. Just needs Beck to be an elite game manager, continued strong trench play, and DBs to elevate. Dawson can stay ahead of Patricia. That's how he feels about the game. He thinks
Dawson can stay ahead of Patricia.
that's what he. Yeah.
Okay.
This is from G Fernie on Twitter. He wants to know the top 3 QB transfers from Miami. He wants a season grade so far after the Texas A&M win and a potential end of season coaching departures. Michigan still doesn't have a coach. The coaching carousel is still open. We don't know what jobs are going to open up, but I think Shannon Dawson could potentially be leaving if eventually somebody calls him and taps him on the shoulder to become a head coach. I just don't know how far it's going to go. You never know. One guy could leave, that leads another guy leaving, that leads another guy leaving, and maybe Shannon Dawson finally gets a head coaching job. I don't know. That's what I would say about departures. A season grade after the Texas A&M win, it's an A now.
A minus. I'm a
Top
top
3.
grader.
I know you are. Top 3 QB transfers for Miami. I've said Sam Levitt. I think that's, to me, the top guy. Sorsby, I don't think is coming here. His girlfriend's a volleyball player, is already at Texas Tech. DJ Lagway, I think, is going to Baylor. I have a whole thing on quarterbacks that I just did for The Athletic, projecting where every guy ends up. I think Levitt's going to come to Miami.
Yeah.
Who is it for you?
I think Levitt's obviously the top target. Raiola may be somebody they consider, but I think he may be going somewhere else. To me, if we had like I said before, if we had a better quarterback developer, man, Aiden Childs, that dude, he's got some talent. He's got some ability. He reminds me of Michael Vick a little bit, the way he runs the football. And he's got a live arm. He's got a little bit of that Cam Ward, a little bit of that Michael Vick in him, that he can make plays when it breaks down, more so than Cam Ward. But he's got a live arm the same way Cam Ward does it. If you just see him flick that ball and it's traveling 60 yards in the air, he just needs a better quarterback coach to get him honed in. He had a terrible offensive line in Michigan State the time he's been there. Coming down here to Miami with a strong offensive line, playing in a better system maybe that fits him better. I like that kid's talent if it's not one of those other guys.
Champa Bay Kane says, has Cam Ward said anything about the Canes or been invited to a game this year? I know he's obviously busy, but I think they'd have the number 1 pick from last year involved to at least hype fans up. Look, Cam, I think they just won a game on Saturday. They beat the Chiefs, didn't they? Who did the Titans beat this weekend? They beat the Chiefs, I thought.
They played the Chiefs, yeah.
He's busy. He will be back at Miami. He loves those guys. He's beloved at Miami. He made a lot of money at Miami. I just think he's in the middle of the NFL season. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
They beat the Chiefs. It's really difficult for him at this point to do anything in the middle of an NFL season. There's a lot of prep that goes into each week. Once the season's over, then he can come by and help the team get pumped up in the fans. But he's rooting for the Hurricanes. There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see him and Restrepo down here.
Yeah, for sure. Our defensive coordinator was the defensive coordinator in Minnesota. Did he ever face Ohio State while at Minnesota, and how much might that help him prepare for this game? Well,
Two
certainly
years ago, and he gave up 37 points.
2 years ago.
Was he there 2 years ago in Minnesota, or was he just there 1 year?
I don't. I think he was just there 1 year.
Then he didn't face them. But 2 years ago, Minnesota played Ohio State and gave up 37 points.
Okay. All right, here we go. This is George DTA. He says, first, talk to the Athletic about bringing this back as a pod. Us old guys like listening in the car. All right, George, I'll
All right,
try.
George. Here's let's I know you're an old guy, but let's give you some game. If you connect your phone to the Bluetooth in the car, which you obviously do because you listen to the podcasts on the car, you could play YouTube through Bluetooth on your audio in the car and just put the phone down and not have to look at our faces. So that's a double advantage. One, you listen to the podcast. Two, you don't have to look at us.
Right. It's the best of both worlds. Second, he says, I'm worried about what is starting to seem like a lack of wide receiver options. It feels like Tony is the only guy able to get open right now. How can we fix that?
Been saying that for a while.
JoJo Trader was wide open for a touchdown.
Yeah.
He got separation. The wind was a mother. I would also say CJ Daniels got open. I didn't think they didn't get the ball because they were covered. I think they just didn't get the ball because it was hard to throw down the field.
Yeah, and
So-
that's part of it. I think it is, but I think all season there's been a lack of production from the outside receivers. You know, CJ Daniels early on was very strong, got hurt, and then after that, it's been sort of dipped down. They started going to Marion a little bit as the season went on, late in the season. I think they need to find ways to do that. Get the ball to Marion in space, use his speed. I think things we've said all season long. I think there is too much static formations sitting there and trying to let the defense do what they want. There needs to be motion. There needs to be a little creativity. They showed a little creativity with the formation, with that swinging gate thing, but didn't use it properly. They need to try and find matchups that work in their favor, and using motions and formations to do that is key.
We have a lot more questions here, Carlos. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them.
Let's get them, Manny. What else we got to do? Let's do it.
Columbus Kane. All right, we're going to go through these faster because I do have something to do for work here. He says, I don't care what anyone says. That was a great win Saturday, regardless how it may have looked. What is the key for our offense to move the ball and get touchdowns against Ohio State?
Protect the quarterback, run the football, mix it up in terms of their formations.
Jake Campbell, the one coach soup. I asked last week what grade you'd give Mario through 4 years. Does this college football win change your grade? Also, Carlos has to be only buying Finn's hats right now. LOL, go Canes.
You know I did.
Jake, we gave the grades a little while ago. I said A. Carlos is A minus. Manny Inked says, who has the better trenches? I'm going to say Miami.
I think defensive line, Miami. Offensive line, I think it's equal.
Crom's Riddle says, will playoff run negatively impact our time to recruit and thus results from the transfer portal this year? No.
I think it's going to help.
Anytime you can see we're playing in a huge game, that helps you. And Mario has this thing well plot out. He's got a lot of good people working for him.
And I will say this, if they defeat the program that's been stealing most of the big-time talent down here in South Florida on national television in front of those kids, maybe not this cycle, but the next cycle is going to be impacted positively.
Rashawn RB242 says, we know the flaws, but I think it's underappreciated how Mario always has a team prepared for high-end matchups. I told you guys, 6-6 now at Miami against top 25 opponents.
That's never been the issue, right? It's been the issue.
It's the bad teams. Yeah. It's the games you don't get up for.
Right.
And the last one from Steven Thunder, I guess this was his first question, 56 Blaxican. I saw a pregame video of Carter Davis turning down the cafecito, but Bert Auburn knocked his cafecito back. Based on that, which kicker do you trust more at this point? I don't think Mario's changing the kicker.
He's not changing the kicker, but I can guarantee you Davis is taking that cafecito next time.
For sure. Guys, it was fun. Carlos, we will talk again soon. I hope you guys get to enjoy your Christmas Eve dinners and your Christmas and Hanukkah and everything else in between here. Miami will be playing on New Year's Eve at 7:30. I know most of us like to get drunk on New Year's Eve and not think about anything and just party, but this is going to be a different kind of party this year. There will be a game to watch.
Absolutely. And what a better way to celebrate New Year's Eve than the Canes beating Ohio State, right? That's the way to do it. And in better news, we are having Piedna lechon for
Mm.
Noche Buena. So my drought has ended. I'm gonna have that juicy, crispy skin in my mouth. Come the 24th, we're back, baby.
And you'll have a Dolphins hat on because you're not required to wear that all the time.
I'm legally and contractually required now to wear a Dolphins hat everywhere I go. I've got 3 coming in tomorrow. They're getting here tomorrow, and I'm going to alternate them throughout the week. I will be probably on New Year's Eve, instead of wearing one of those little party hats, wearing a Dolphins hat, maybe with a party hat on top.
I still owe you the Flanagan's lunch, so one of these days, please let me
We're
know
going
when
on
you're
2 years now, but
available.
that's fine. Don't worry about
I
it.
know, I know. This is going to be 2 years worth of lunch that I owe you, so it's quite a bit.
I'm ready to collect.
Guys, that's it for Wide Right. We hope you enjoyed today's show. We will be back with more show before Miami plays Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Talk soon.
Peace.